Good morning and welcome to our Sunday presentation. United Lodge of Theosophists, Washington, D.C. meets every Sunday at 11 a.m. for the discussion of a particular topic. Today's presentation will be on lessons of the Zodiac, and next week the topic will be aphorisms on karma. Please also note that we meet every first and third Sunday of the month at 12:30 p.m. to read and discuss selected theosophical writings. We're currently having roundtable discussions on the Bhagavad Gita. Our lodge, United Lodge of Theosophists, is guided by its declaration, which states the following. The policy of this lodge is independent devotion to the cause of Theosophy, without professing attachment to any theosophical organization. It is loyal to the great founders of the Theosophical movement, but does not concern itself with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. The work it has on hand and the end it keeps in view are too absorbing and too lofty to leave it the time or inclination to take part in side issues. That work and that end is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of Theosophy and the exemplification and practice of those principles through a truer realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. It holds that the unassailable basis for a union among Theosophists, wherever and however situated, is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching, and therefore has neither constitution, bylaws, nor officers, the sole bond between its associates being that basis. And it aims to disseminate this idea among Theosophists and the furtherance of unity. It regards as Theosophists all who are engaged in the true service of humanity, without distinction of race, creed, sex, condition, or organization. And it welcomes to its association all those who are in accord with its declared purposes, and who desire to fit themselves, by study and otherwise, to be the better able to help and teach others. The true Theosophist belongs to no cult or sect, yet belongs to each and all. Today's reading will be from the Bhagavad Gita. It is even a portion of myself which, having assumed life in this world of conditioned existence, draweth together the five senses and the mind in order that it may obtain a body and may leave it again. And those are carried by the Sovereign Lord to and from whatever body he enters or quits, even as the breeze bears the fragrance from the flower. Presiding over the eye, the ear, the touch, the taste, and the power of smelling, and also over the mind, he experienceth the objects of sense. The deluded do not see the spirit when it quitteth or remains in the body, nor when, moved by the qualities it has experienced in the world. But those who have the eye of wisdom perceive it, and devotees who industriously strive to do so see it dwelling in their own hearts, whilst those who have not overcome themselves, who are devoid of discrimination, see it not, even though they strive thereafter. Know that the brilliance of the sun, which illuminateth the whole world, and the light which is in the moon and in the fire, are the splendor of myself. I entered the earth supporting all living things by my power, and I am that property of sap which is taste, nourishing all the herbs and plants of the fields. Becoming the internal fire of the living, I associate with the upward and downward breathing, and cause the four kinds of food to digest. I am in the hearts of all men, and from me come memory, knowledge, and also the loss of both. I am to be known by all the Vedas. I am he who is the author of the Vedanta, and I alone am the interpreter of the Vedas. There are two kinds of beings in the world, the one divisible, the other indivisible. The divisible is all things and the creatures, and the indivisible is called Kutastha, or he who standeth on high, unaffected. But there is another spirit, designated as the Supreme Spirit, Paramatma, which permeates and sustains the three worlds. As I am above the divisible and also superior to indivisible, therefore both in the world and in the Vedas am I to be known as the Supreme Spirit. He who being not deluded knoweth me, thus as the Supreme Spirit knoweth all things, and worships me under every form and condition. Thus, O Sinless One, have I declared unto thee this most sacred science. He who understandeth it, O son of Bharata, will be a wise man, and the performer of all that is to be done. And now for today's talk.
Good morning and welcome, friends. The Zodiac is a very extensive subject, but we will go to HPB's explanation in the glossary first for the external understanding of it. And here are some diagrams on the board that we can correlate with this reading. The word from which it comes is a diminutive of Zun, animal. Animal. This word is used in a dual meaning. It may refer to the fixed and intellectual zodiac or to the movable and natural zodiac. And here's the zodiac, and that is the depiction of the celestial zodiac. In astronomy, says science, it is an imaginary belt in the heavens, 16 degrees or 18 degrees broad, through the middle of which passes the sun's path, and that is called the ecliptic. It contains the 12 constellations which constitute the 12 signs of the zodiac, and from which they are named. As the nature of the zodiacal light, that elongated, luminous, triangular figure, which lying almost in the ecliptic, with its base on the horizon and its apex at greater or smaller altitudes, is to be seen only during the morning and evening twilights. Now, at that time, when she was writing this, she said that science was entirely unaware of it. But if you look at the dictionary, it also says exactly the same thing today. The origin and real significance and occult meaning of the zodiac were and are still a mystery to all save the initiates. Now, this is also true today. In Isis Unveiled, HPB turned the key one time to the zodiac, just one time. And in 5 years of Theosophy, Subaru did the same thing. He also turned the key one time. HPB's explanation is to show us that the patriarchs of the Jewish system is exactly the constellations of the zodiac. In that system, there are two sets of patriarchs, and through simple elimination, she shows that it was just presented as a double line of origination just to confuse the general public. And you can go and read it. It is very, very well explained, and it really clears the roots of the Christian religion also. Now, Subaru's explanation is about the Sanskrit names. This talk is not about who originated the zodiac, but when you go to that article, it becomes very clear that the Sanskrit names indicate that it was the sages of India that came up with this system. And we're told here that between the Chaldean stargazer and the modern astrologer, there is a wide gulf, and that gulf still remains today. So we said it was an imaginary circle passing around the Earth in the plane of the equator, and its first point is called Aries, which indicates 0 degrees. It's right here. I put a cross here because this is where it starts, right here. Oops. It's Aries. That's where we're starting. And it is divided into 12 equal parts, which is, of course, designated as the signs of the zodiac, and each space is 30 degrees wide. And it is measured by the ascension of the celestial bodies. The movable or natural zodiac is a succession of constellations forming a belt of 47 degrees in width, lying north and south of the plane of the ecliptic. The precession of the equinoxes is caused by the motion of the sun through space, which makes the constellations appear to move forward against the order of the signs at the rate of 50¼ seconds per year. A simple calculation will show that at this rate, the constellation Taurus, Heb Aleph, was in the first sign of the zodiac at the beginning of Kali Yuga. And remember, please, that when she wrote all this material, we had just passed 5,000 years of Kali Yuga. 5,000 years. This material that the Theosophical movement presented to humanity came at that time because of the cycles crossing one another, smaller within the greater ones, and the time was right for its presentation. At this time also, Leo was in the summer solstice, the Scorpio in the autumnal equinox, and Aquarius in the winter solstice. And these facts form the astronomical key to half the religious systems of the world, the Christian scheme included. The zodiac was known in India and Egypt for incalculable ages, and the knowledge of the sages, the magi, of those countries with regard to occult influence of the stars and heavenly bodies on our earth was far greater than the profane astronomy has it today. So with that in the background, it would become very clear that astronomy and astrology is a precision-oriented science based on the zodiacal constellation, because as we move in space around the sun is also moving, and so all these constellations come into view or closer proximity of the Earth, and they influence our life, we should say. Start this talk with a quotation from the soul of the Indian. Quotation: "At last, like Adam, the firstborn of the Sioux, became weary of living alone, and formed for himself a companion, not a mate, but a brother, not out of a rib from his side, but from a splinter which he drew from his great toe. This was the little boy man. His elder brother was his teacher throughout every stage of human progress, from infancy to manhood, and it is to the rules which he laid down and his counsels to the little boy man that we trace many of our most deep-rooted beliefs and most sacred customs." The soul of the Indian. So then the highest of the firstborn in the secret doctrine symbology are the hierarchies of the architects and builders of the universe and of living things on earth. They are generally gods, or called gods, and Diane Chohan's intelligent forces through which the principles of the cosmos are brought into function. So then there are 7 great hierarchies of creative powers, 7 of the manifesting scale being connected with the 7 planets. And what are those planets? We're talking about the solar system and the sacred planets that are mentioned in the secret doctrine. Venus, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter. What did I leave out? Mercury, and also Sun and the Moon, even though those 2 are substitutes for the sacred planets, which are not given to us at this time. So having said that, there is obviously life on those planets. But if we read the secret doctrine, it also tells us that they are far more advanced than we are. So if science is looking for life, it's not going to be on the physical plane, because Venus is in its 7th round. And so is Mercury. What does that mean? We are in the 4th round. We have reached more than half point, and we are spiraling towards spirituality. Now the secret doctrine says by the time the 7th round comes about, we are spiritualized and etherealized. So if there is life on those planets, it's not physical, it is not objective. So science is going to struggle with that quite a while. So from looking at the constellations, it is important to understand that the constellations are related to the planets. And from those 7 planets descend or emanate manus and progenitors of mankind, spiritually, psychically, astrally, as well as physically. Now, according to Plato, the universe was built by the firstborn on a geometrical figure of dodecahedron. That's an N. Dodecahedron. 10. No, I'm sorry. 12. 12 sides. 12 sides. And this is typified in the 12 signs of the zodiac. Eternity or duration is pointed off into grand cycles, in each of which 12 transformations occur, following partial destruction by fire and water alternatively. Okay, so eternity is a very long period of time. When you look at a Mahayuga, it is 311 trillion years. Even that is unacceptable to my mind, because I can imagine what kind of time period that would be. But anyway, that it is. So then we have smaller cycles within the grand cycles. What are those smaller yugas? Well, we said we're in Kali Yuga. So obviously there's the golden age, the silver, the bronze, and then comes the dark age, which is our Kali Yuga. So we have lived through the gold, silver, bronze, and now we're in the dark age. What does Mr. Judge tell us? He says it is iron. It is heavy as iron, and it is dark as black night. So this is where we are, and everyone needs to understand that around us all the expressions of life indicate that, but it doesn't mean we have to stay in it. We have spent 5,000 years of this Kali Yuga, and there is a whole lot left. What exactly did Mr. Judge tell us? There is a chart at the end of the ocean where he gives the yugas. I didn't mark it. Anyway, it's about 400,000 years. Here it is. Kali Yuga, or is it 4 million? Let me see. 432,000 years. 432,000 years. And golden is 1,728,000. Silver 1,296,000. Bronze 864, and Kali Yuga 432. So if we add them together, it is 4,322,000 years. So we're talking about great periods of progress, evolutionary progress. So what does the zodiac signify then with these constellations in it? We are told that our evolutionary process is written in the zodiac. If we could only understand what it is telling us. But the key, as said, is not given to this Kali Yuga age, because it is a transitory age and everything moves very fast in it, and they don't trust us with permanent information that never changes, but we are constantly changing in Kali Yuga. So then, the 12 signs of the zodiac are emblematic in their manifold aspects, and they refer to spiritual and physical evolution of human races, ages, and divisions of time. So this conception, the ancients depicted as a pictorial design, which is that and that, and gave us a celestial belt telling us a lot of information about our past as well as our future when we learn how to read it. So then, gods, genesis of gods, come from one point, the one universal, immutable, eternal, and absolute unity. The first, or rather one power, was called circle of heaven, symbolized by the circle with a point in it when that process started. And of course, we're referring to the logos, or the spiritual sun. Yeah. So the great circle or ring of the zodiac symbolizes the space, in our words, one unity. So this sign symbolizes one unity. And there is this catechism in the Secret Doctrine where several questions are asked and the answers given. What is it that ever is? Obviously space. And it is parentless. It's eternal. What is it that ever was? The germ in the root. What is it that is coming and going? The great breath. And when we did the three fundamentals, we referred to the great breath as motion. And so then the question is, are there three eternals? And the secret doctrine tells us, no, the three are one. What are we referring to? Whether it is cosmic or microcosmic, the three in the triad is what we are told is one, because they're not separate one another, they work together. And of course, the space is referred to as the great mother. And the central spiritual sun is within that golden egg, the circle. So the mother of the gods is that cosmic matrix, and all of the heavenly bodies of our system is included in it. Now, we said that the evolutionary process is recorded in the zodiac, but if you read the secret doctrine, at one time, at the beginning, there were only 10 signs and not 12. Signs, not 12. The two were only known to the initiates, and they inserted the two into the diagram when it was necessary for them to obviously learn it or discuss it. But we know in the secret doctrine, I think we were told that the Greeks were the ones considered the originator of Libra. In other words, they inserted Libra into the zodiacal circle. We said that Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, and Venus, plus Sun and Moon, are the heavenly parents, or synthetically, they constitute Father. And in ancient times, they were considered as heavenly bodies in direct astral and psychic communication with our world, the earth, because they were its guides, watchers, morally and physically. So the regions or rectors were connected to our monads and our spiritual faculties. So why then do we have 12 signs now? Because when we come to Virgo and Scorpio constituted one sign. Was one sign. One sign. So when we put Virgo and Scorpio together, then obviously Libra was not there, because once Virgo and Scorpio separated, that's when the Libra as the balance point was put in there. So why should that have been divided into two, is what we need to ask. Well, at one point we were hermaphrodite, and HPV explains it in the secret doctrine. Before the fourth race, we were hermaphrodite. There were two-armed, two-legged. Anyway, you need to go. Please read it. What does that mean? It means that we separated into male and female, and I think those two signs have something to do with it. Once we separated into male and female, there had to be a balance point inserted into the zodiacal circle, and that's when Libra was added. So the sign was divided into two, and that is what we have now. It says that when in earlier annals of the fifth human race, the Great Pyramid of Egypt was the fane of initiation, Draco was the pole star, a symbol of the guide, guru and direction, the lord star guiding sidereal divinity. The Hierophant or master of wisdom, who brought the neophyte into his spiritual rebirth, was also the star. And so these elder brothers of mankind were called Hermes. So, when we are sufficiently spiritualized, there will be no need to force us to understand what the wisdom religion is, because we will all know it. For this to occur, we need to understand that the Logos and its seven lights, in our spirit who is sevenfold, first appeared during the earlier cycles as Buddha, Krishna, Zoroaster, Manu, Thoth Hermes, and then this logoic light in its seven aspects appeared again as gods on earth, and then they had to incarnate into humanity as teachers and instructors to inform at the initiation, at the initial stage of our evolution, so that they could imprint the core with these undeniable principles so that we would remember it. So the zodiac was known, we said, in India and Egypt for incalculable ages. I think 268,000 years is given to the Dendera zodiac, if my memory serves me correctly, because I have not read it in recent days, but that's what comes to my mind, and you can check that in the Secret Doctrine. Also, I believe there's a mention of the pyramids being over 400,000 years old. Menes was their first human king, and that was 3,000 years BC. So with this philosophy, we're talking immense periods of time. We can't dwarf it. So the chief features of one's life are always in accordance with the constellation under which one is born. That is, in accord with the character of its animating principle, the deity presiding over that constellation, whether we call it an archangel or a Dayan Chohan. So the units of humanity all proceed from the same source, the central sun and its shadow, the visible sun. Every effort or will to purify and unite with the self-God breaks one of the lower rays. The spiritual entity of man is drawn ever higher from ray to ray until he is again reabsorbed into the one and highest beam of the parent sun. The latter is the true center of every man as of cosmos. Each can receive influence from that center, as each man is or to be connected with some particular one of these adepts. So then our destiny is truly written in the stars. There is a true present day astrology recoverable to us in the Theosophical movement if we fulfill the moral requirements to possess that great mystery. Well, I have run out of time. And perhaps we should mention this too. At the beginning, there were 12 hierophants on earth, or masters of wisdom, and they correspond, of course, to the zodiacal signs, and we just said that we are related to one of them, one of the 7. So at this time it is stated that the waters of those 12 small islands representing the zodiacal signs, 2 of which remained mystery signs, is no longer in existence. It is now the Gobi Desert, and it is stated that in that Gobi Desert there is only one small island within one lake. It is the remnant, referring to the age, which was the glacial period when that was in existence, glacial. So there are signs on earth, and the history is recorded in the heavens. So then the symbology of the zodiac is not primarily religious, is not primarily astronomical, nor even astrological. The key to the mysteries of the zodiac has to be turned 7 times. In every smallest event of life is an occult significance, having a 7-fold root, whether human or cosmic. The knowledge of determining in each event this occult aspect belonged at all times to the adepts. Man, it is stated, is himself a zodiacal highway, through which his own particular sun, the Atman, makes a circuit. So here is the zodiac, and we have a zodiac within ourselves. We go from ray to ray to that ray. We said that the 7 sacred planets all give a ray to humanity, and that all of the hierophants are divided amongst themselves into particular family, and one of them is also related to each one of us, depending under whose guidance or whose ray we come. So we have our own zodiac, and we make a circle, and as we go higher and higher in consciousness, the lower one of those rays drops, and when we reach the highest, then we have become an initiate, because we also understand what the heavenly constellations stand for. So we will learn the meaning of the greater pilgrimage of the earthly luminary, because cosmic and microcosmic are definitely related. We're a small copy of the larger cosmic, but the events that occur in our lives are played on 7 different planes, 7 levels of consciousness, and when we learn to synthesize it, then perhaps we can get back to the root as to where it came from. So now we will answer questions. Yeah.
Can you please clarify which is the lower ray and which is the higher ray?
They don't tell us, but I'll put it up here. You have to determine that for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't. They don't tell us. Okay, so we said yes. Sun and moon are blinds. They don't give us whatever this stands for, or this stands for. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, here's the 7, and according to the writings, we go from one ray to the other, depending which one is. Okay, the explanation given in the Secret Doctrine is that also we're not all at the same place. Our inner nature does not is not a copy of one another. Depending what qualities you have brought from the previous life, one of these is in the ascendancy in this life, and they're color coordinated because these planets represents the 7 rays of the sun. And you know that the visible spectrum starts from red and it goes all the way to violet. So colors, numbers, and letters are all coordinated in Sanskrit and probably in Latin as well. The student does not know because I don't speak Latin. And so depending what character you express most, that is most prominent in you, but also the star that you were born under has astrological significance in your life because all of your opportunities come under that star. And Libra, for instance, is a balance principle, right? Now, all the others have significance as well. That's a learning we have to do. Under each star, events come, but our reaction to it is very important, that we not be negative towards it, that it is not punishment, but a learning experience. Whatever comes, we greet it with welcoming arms open. Mr. Judge says you have to think, this is what I asked for, and this is why it has come. So, yeah, it does not tell you which one is what, but it obviously has significance. The only thing that this student noticed in the Secret Doctrine is Saturn, that the Jewish nation is under the jurisdiction of Saturn, whatever that means. I don't understand. So, I don't know. Yeah.
You mentioned that Venus is in the 7th round.
Mm-hmm. So is Mercury.
We cannot see, we just see Venus that corresponds to our round, which is the 4th round, and being the most physical, the most material. Is that right?
Yes.
And I have more to this, my comment. And scientists talk about parallel universe. Would the 7th round of Venus correspond to the theory? They know, they talk in theory. They don't have the equipment to provide proof of that, of what they're saying, the scientists. But they talk about parallel universes, and would the 7th round of Venus correspond to those parallel universes or other dimensions that scientists
The student
talk
does
about?
not know what parallel universe means in regard to this philosophy, because at the explanation given, it is stated that the sun originated first because it gathered more material, but the planets did not come out of the sun. They are all made of mother substance, which is homogeneous substance. Having said that, that removes the Bang theory out of existence, according to the Secret Doctrine, because it does not confirm what science is telling us. But each planet has 7 characteristic existences that correspond with one another. In other words, Mercury goes through 7 cycles. Venus does the same. And this statement came when the student was looking for explanation as to why we have a satellite circling around Earth and why Venus and Mercury do not. And that's the explanation given, because they are subjective. They're in the 7th round, and the previous planetary system that gave life to it is no longer visible because they're not in their material cycle. But what we see of them is what is correspondentially the same that they had in the 4th, what we perceived. So if that's what parallel means, I think coordination and consubstantiality is what is used in the secret doctrine. I don't know if that's the same terminology for the scientists. So it means that they roll together in space together, the 7 rings of that planet, just like Earth has 7 rings that roll together, or 7 globes within one another, they roll in space together, but their substance is not the same. Because when your consciousness is on one plane, that's the plane you see, but you do not see all 7 of them at the same time. You have to have that synthetic consciousness. When you synthesize everything into one, the original one, and return to the homogeneous, that you can perceive all of them. So until such time. But HBB does say in the secret doctrine that there will come a time when humanity will be so much more advanced that the 7 keys will also be provided to science. That is very interesting. But you say this is not the age yet when that will be given to scientific research. The 7 keys of the zodiac. Mr. Judge has an article about the keys, and apparently the Gita, even though it is in verse form, also has the key. Because when you read it, there is that spirit kind of flowing through its pages, and yet you kind of cannot get at its core meaning. That's what they're talking about, and it's the same with this one too. This is symbolical, but the other one is in verse form, but they both have a key. So, Herb, did you have a question?
Yes. It seems like this is such an important topic, yet in the West, we may hear the word zodiac sometime, but I doubt if very many people really have any idea what it means in any substantive way. Is there anywhere in the world that where we have this in our schooling?
Not to
the East or the West, or
no, not to the students' knowledge. But remember, Kepler and some others understood it because their writings show that they themselves understood it, but they did not give it out because first they can't, and HBB has references in the secret doctrine where the writer did not actually put his name to the document because it would have been a penalty for him by church at that time. And she's talking about the 19th century. Remember, it was different world back then when she came into amongst us to bring this philosophy to us. But even back then, people had inner perceptions about things that they could not say. So you have to also remember that those philosophers who were embedded in this kind of ideology did not really say a whole lot about things that they could not. because even in Zanoni, Bulwer Lytton HPV says knew a whole lot more about the higher self and all of the other maladies that come about through the astral and other things, but he did not say it. He just gave it out as a fictional book for people to read it. But if you look underneath it, that book is not fictional. It really expresses truth. So it's a life of an initiate who fell from his position. Yeah.
We talked about Virgo Scorpio being one sign and then separated into two, corresponding with us being hermaphrodites and then separating into two sexes. What's do the teachings say anything about it? If it was one constellation at first and then some changes happened in the sky, in terms of the constellations being changed at that time as well, or was it just initiates pointing, okay, this is how we designate it now, and here's Libra, and this is the way we're doing it now, or was it actual physical changes? And
it was 12 back then too, but externally we only had 10.
Okay.
She says, and when initiates were given the information, because they were taught through dance, and she says that the dance still remains to this day, and she names it, I can't remember, I think Gobi or something like that, I'm not sure. It was 12 back then too, but only 10 was given out to the general public. So when the time came that it was a necessity to make it 12, she said not to give the true understanding of the zodiac to the general public. They came up with that emblematic representation of it and put Libra in between to give it a balance point. She does have a diagram in the in Isis Unveiled Volume 2 where she shows this this one, where she shows how she says these are the signs: Taurus, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, and there is Virgo. And look at this sign and this sign. Two lines crossing one another, and this one has a tail. In other words, male, female, I think is correspondential to those things. Virgo is called the Virgin of Heaven, and it prepares itself to descend into substance, because without substance there is no humanity on earth, right? It's descending into substance, but that's Libra right here, and she says that represents Hermes. The balance point is what? What is Hermes a representative of? Wisdom. Yeah. So, according to Isis, Hermes was taken alive. It is represented as a Metatron, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's all right, leave it. I don't need them. Metatron. And he was taken alive. Hermes Trismegistus. Mm-hmm. Yep, wisdom.
There's a Metatron's cube, which is...
Sorry?
There's a geometric concept called Metatron's cube.
Mm-hmm.
We can discuss it after our talk, but maybe it's tied to that.
Well, mention it, please, tell us.
It's a symbol. It's hard to explain it, but I think it has something to do.
Yeah. So he's the messenger between God and humanity, in other words. That's what Metatron means here. He's the messenger. Yep. Messenger. Yeah. And she explains this in ISIS in regard to the Jewish Kabbalah. I think it's very interesting to see how the religion came about and how it became phallic, because she says that in its originality there was no phallic anything about it. It was just an expression of reality, because we changed from hermaphrodite to two-sexed lunar, from sun to the lunar existence. So it was a natural sign, a natural symbological signs to express that change that came about. But as humanity went into the dark ages and could not understand the concepts, they humanized it. But here is what she tells us. This student didn't know this, but that the Jewish system at the beginning was spiritual, because their leader was an initiate in the Egyptian system. But later on, David is the name given, changed it. And what's the other one? Zechariah also changed it even further than David did. And that there is no semblance of that religion, initial religion, is in the Talmud today. This was a shocking thing for me to hear, because I'm not familiar with that system, but there it is. So she gives us a lot of information. We obtain it, and then you have to do something with it. We're not here to offend other people, but we need to know what reality is now and what it was then. The cube is 4. It represents 4. When you have 3 plus 4, 7, right? That's the constitutional man. But it also, I think, 3 is spiritual, 4 is substance, material. So we are told that the horizontal line represents the mother, and the vertical line represents the father. In other words, the spirit descending into substance. That's what it means. But to make a phallic sign out of that, I don't know how anybody came up with that, because it represents figuratively what nature is doing. So I don't see where that is phallic. But the Jewish religion is a phallic religion today, and even the Talmudists, she tells us in the Secret Doctrine, do not follow the original lines laid down by their leader at the beginning. Who was the leader? Who initiated that process? Who was the initial one? Their prophet.
Moses. Moses.
Yeah, Moses.
Yeah.
So Moses initiated it because he was an initiate of the temple in Alexandria, in Judea. He knew when they went into captivity, he became an initiate, and so he was introduced to all these systems. He understood it, and he based his religion on the spiritual reality. But apparently David changed it, and then Hezekiah further changed it. So, thank you very much. Please join us next week for
Aphorisms on Karma.
aphorisms on karma.